Okay, so the first anime I ever watched was Fairy Tail, and at the time, I thought it was amazing. Like, I thought it was peak fiction. But as time went on, I was like, something's missing. Something's missing from this story to make it great. And then, somewhere between sophomore and junior year of high school, I started watching Attack on Titan. And at first, thought it was trash. Like, I thought it was so mid. I was like, these are just naked giants running around. What's the big deal? But then I got to like the second season and my opinion changed. Pretty sure it was the death of Ymir that like changed my whole mindset. At the time, she was definitely a main character. And I was like, wait, they're killing off main characters? None of the shows I've ever watched have done this before. Or at least none of the anime. I was like, oh shoot, like this is serious. They're not playing around. At the time, My Hero Academia was my favorite anime, but I had slowly fell out of love with it because something about that All Might versus All for One fight had annoyed me. It wasn't until I watched Attack on Titan that I realized what it was. All Might should have died in that fight. Like, I hated that BS cop-out they did by just making him lose his powers. Like, no, he should have died. It made me not care about any future villains to come because I knew they would pose no real threat to the main characters' lives. That's the job of death in stories like this. It allows the viewers to take all conflict seriously because nobody's safe. For example, the GOAT, Commander Erwin, I'd say his death was the most impactful of the whole show because not only was he prepared to die, but he convinced a bunch of other people to go die with him just by hyping them up. That moment really produced the greatest anime speech of all time. Like, dude had me in front of my TV screaming, ready to go die in battle with them. That episode also sort of solidified Attack on Titan as my favorite anime. Alright, so we've been talking about anime this whole time, but what about regular TV shows? Let's take a look at, arguably, one of the best TV series ever made. Game of Thrones. Now, I know a lot of people my age haven't watched it because when it was coming out, we were all sort of little and like it was a kind of inappropriate show. Like, I know a lot of people's parents wasn't letting them watch it, but I started watching it when I was about 16 and I was like, this show is fire. Like, I get the hype that all the adults were talking about. It was amazing. The first season starts off tame, introducing us to the characters, having some world building in there. The viewers grow attached to the Stark family, and in particular the father, Ned Stark. Well, that doesn't last long because Ned Stark dies at the end of season 1. I mean, who would have thought a main character dying that early on? Unheard of. Now, I'd say this was the point in the show where I realized anyone could die, but I'd be lying. We all know which episode broke our heart. The Red Wedding. I considered Robb Stark the main character up until this episode. Yeah, I've never been more heartbroken ever from a TV show than after I watched that episode. But I was also confused. How could they carry on the show without Robb Stark? He was leading the rebellion and winning. I quickly learned that they, in fact, could carry on the show without him. I mean, the character development that we saw with the other characters due to the death of him and his mom, amazing. Like, it started Arya's revenge arc, and it allowed Daenerys to take the lead in this rebellion. I enjoyed the direction the show went in after that episode. All the way until like the last 2 episodes, but we don't have to talk about that. I've been seeing these movies a lot on TikTok and stuff. What about The Hunger Games? I mean, they came out like 10 years ago. I remember being in like 2nd or 3rd grade when the movies came out, and after I saw that first one, I rushed to the bookstore just so I could finish reading it because I couldn't wait. I had to know what happened next. But not only did Rue's death spark the revolution, but it also sort of symbolized and foreshadowed the death of Prim as well. Katniss clearly saw Rue as like a sister almost. I know they only knew each other for a short amount of time, but the stakes of the game drew them close. Rue's death happened at a time where Katniss was starting to feel hopeful about winning the games. And then Prim's death happened at a time where Katniss was starting to feel hopeful about winning the war. Coincidence? I think not. I made this video because it's something a few of my friends disagree with. I'm not saying a story can't be entertaining without death, but stories with death reach the viewers on a level that other stories without it just can't. Let me ask you, would Erin's death hit the same if him and his troops didn't go die in battle right after? Would Jon Snow becoming King of the North be as impactful if him and his family didn't have such a tragic past? Would the revolution have started without the death of Rue? And even if it did, would the people of Panem been as willing to fight without a martyr to fight for? Art imitates life, and death is a part of life. I'm just saying, if you want like a book, movie, or TV show that'll really reach your viewers, you need something in there that we can all relate to. And that's death.